Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us at another Akin Developers session. Thank you, thank you. A lot of familiar faces, so we really appreciate you guys coming every 2 weeks and also coming to see Erin on Tuesdays with her meeting. She had a great one about multi-unit and syndication. If you missed it, and so you know, we are also getting Erin's videos and we will post them, so you guys will get all the videos about everything. So Erin has been really nice with sharing that information with us. So today we're talking home inspections. As I always say, as an investor, you have to understand what the home inspector is going to look for. It's crucial to understand that. I fight with Wilson all the time, and I tell him, you have to, the home inspector is going to nix you on that. Sure enough, he gets nixed on things, and I know. So you have to keep that in mind. You also want to make sure when you release your contractor, you have that last inspection done so that you don't have to chase them to have them come back and fix the stuff they should have done right the first time. It's worth spending that $450 to $500 to get a peace of mind. And you do want to leave some for the buyer's agent, as the buyer's inspector as well. So it gives you a little bit of negotiating room. Inspector's role is to find something. It doesn't matter how clean the house is, he's going to find something. So Earl, if you can please introduce yourself to the group. Most of the students here are from Fortune Builders, and we do have other people outside of Fortune Builders, but we all connected that way.
Okay, excellent. All right, well, first I'd like to say hello to everyone. Always good to be in front of people and talk about the thing that I'm most passionate about, which are home inspections. A brief bio about myself. I've been doing home inspections for about 14 years. I started doing inspections in 2008. To be honest with you, I got into home inspections because I was looking to be a real estate investor, but I didn't know how to pretty much evaluate a property. I didn't know what was considered a good property or a bad property. So I decided to go to home inspection school just to get the knowledge so I could, evaluate a property, and ended up falling in love with home inspections and worked under another inspector for about a year, then formed my own home inspection company, and I've been on my own and, I've never had to look back. What else about my boring life? I have 3 sons, none of which are interested in being a home inspector. So my vision is to pass this on to someone. I thought I had one with my youngest son, which is 14, and he now pays me no attention. He's into Fortnite, FaceTime, and his friends. So he used to be my little shadow, meaning I'd have him with me on inspections. I had him checking outlets and windows. I can't remember the last time that little dude has been on an inspection with me. So, with that being said, the home inspection industry, this is the one thing that I'm truly passionate about. It's the one thing that I would honestly do for free in a perfect world, in a world where bills didn't exist and things like that. I would do this for free because I really like doing it that much. As far as the properties themselves, I inspect everything that's physically there. I always tell my clients, if you can see it, I inspect it. So I always focus on I call them the big 5, meaning the roof, the structure, the plumbing, the electric, and the HVAC system. I always tell my clients, if those 5 things are in good shape, just like our bodies, as long as our brain, our heart, our kidneys, our lungs, as long as all that stuff is in good shape, overall, we're healthy. You might stump a toe, but it's not the end of the world. So, and that's kind of that's the analogy that I use whenever I talk about home inspections, as far as the major components, because like the inspection I just left, it happens almost every day. At the end, they always say, Earl, would you buy this home? Now, legally, I can't answer that question because I'm in a position of influence. So I can influence, in other words, I could kill the deal or, push the deal forward. So I always answer that question the same way. I focus on the big 5. As long as the big 5 are in good shape, then overall the property is in good shape to me. You guys can hear me, right? Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
So I
You
have
say what the big 5 was, Earl? I'm sorry, did I miss that?
I didn't hear you. Say it again.
Did you say what the big 5 was?
Oh, you know what? You're right. So it's roof, structure, plumbing, HVAC, and electric. So those are the big five. So the reason I say the big five is because those are what we call the big ticket items. So if an inspector misses something in one of those five categories, that's when the real expenses start coming in as far as having it, repaired or remediated. So that's why we call those, the big five, simply because those are the things that are going to cost someone the most money in order to have them repaired or replaced. I have a little questionnaire here that I always give out to people when I talk about inspections. So first thing, people always ask me, what does my inspection cover? So my inspection covers, like I said, the big five. And like, to make it simple, I always tell my clients, if you see it, we inspect it. So we inspect every window, every outlet. We inspect all of your appliances. A lot of inspectors don't do that so all home inspectors follow what we call the standards of practice. So the standards of practice is kind of like I don't want to say our Bible, but it pretty much is, it serves as a Bible as far as the things that home inspectors look for. Now, according to the standards of practice, we don't have to check appliances. My company does. According to the standards of practice, we're required to check a representative number of windows, a representative number of outlets. We check every outlet and every window. So I always tell my clients, if you see it, we're going to inspect it. 2, how long have you been practicing in the home inspection profession, and how many inspections have you completed? Oh, shoot. I've been doing, like I said, I started in 2008. How many have I completed? Oh, wow. At this point, I've definitely done a couple thousand home inspections. And that includes condominiums, townhomes, as well as single family homes. Are you specifically experienced in residential inspections? Absolutely. All we cover pretty much are residential inspections and then ancillary services that are offered during the inspection. So what I mean by ancillary services, we offer radon testing, mold testing, lead testing, swimming pool testings, and then we're also 203K certified inspectors as well.
Before you move on, explain, I know what 203K is, but maybe you can explain it to them.
Okay, so a 203K inspector is another term for a HUD consultant. So what happens is when properties, obviously need some work, let's say they need a roof, or, the HVAC system, needs to be repaired, or if the person just wants to, completely renovate the kitchen or change the flooring, what they'll do is they'll apply for a loan for that property. Then they'll take out an additional loan for, let's say, $50,000 or $70,000, whatever it is, to help them do the renovation that they want to do. So whenever a person does that, they need a HUD consultant that's familiar with the 203K process in order to come in and inspect the home, because it's a 203K inspection is a little different versus your regular residential inspection. So 203K inspections focus more on the overall safety of the property and whether or not what the buyer wants to get done is feasible or can get done. So I have a lot of times people come in and they want to do, they send me this document that has all these different things that they want to do. And I say, okay, well, what's your repair budget? And they say $50,000. And I'm like, dude, this is like $200,000 worth of stuff that you want to change. It's just not feasible. So that's where the HUD consultant comes in. So, to hear out what the buyer wants to get done, and then to check the market cost to see if what they want to get done is feasible to get done. And versus a regular home inspection, a lot of people think a regular home inspection is pass or fail. It's really not. It's more strengths and weaknesses. So when I evaluate a property, my job is to communicate all the strengths and communicate all the weaknesses. So that's another question that I get, did the house pass? And I kind of smile and I'm like, there's no such thing as pass or fail with the home inspection. My job is just to reveal to you, the buyer, what's going on with the property as of the day of the inspection. So that's a little bit of the differences between the regular home inspection as well as the 203K inspection. Let me see. Do you offer to do any repairs or improvements? No. So the reason I do not offer to do any repairs or improvements is because as a home inspector, my company follows the standards of practice and we also follow the code of ethics. The code of ethics states that we cannot be the finder and the fixer. It's too convenient. So it's considered a conflict of interest. So if I'm doing a home inspection and I see that this outlet is wrong, and I say, you know what, Mr. Smith, this outlet is wrong, but guess what? I have a guy that can come in and fix that outlet. Too convenient for me to be the finder and the fixer. So because of that, I don't offer any repairs. Now I have a couple contractors like Aissa's contractor, Wilson, that I met. His work was so great. I referred him a couple of times because he's a licensed contractor and I've seen his work. So my job in that situation, I just make the introduction and the buyer and the contractor kind of go from there. But I don't do any repairs myself. How long does the inspection take? A typical home inspection takes about 2 to 2.5 hours to evaluate, everything, the exterior and everything from the roof to the foundation. How much does it cost? Now, the cost of the home inspection, it all depends on what the property square footage is. So my company, anything that's 2,000 square foot or less, we typically charge $375 for. If it's 2,000 square foot to 2,500, we charge $425. And then we pretty much check our pricing sheet to see what the square footage is. So when clients call me and they're like, Earl, how much will it cost? My first question is, what's the square footage? When I first started doing inspections, I wasn't doing that. I was just going off of the bedrooms. So a person called me and I'm like, how many bedrooms? They're like 3 bedrooms. I'm like, okay, cool. How many bathrooms? They're like 2. I'm like, cool. So I pull up to this home and I charge them $350 for it. And I pull up to this mini freaking mansion and I'm looking at it like, oh my gosh, I told this dude $350. It took me about 4 hours to inspect the property. It was one of these huge homes right off of here in Maryland off of Croom Road. So it was literally like a mini mansion. And I shorted myself because I could have charged him at least $725 to $750. I told him $350. So I stuck to that price, but I also use it as a learning experience. So ever since then, if anyone calls me, my first question is, what is the square footage? Let me see here. What type of inspection report do you provide and how long does it take to receive the report? So the inspection reports that we use are in the narrative format, meaning that I'll always have a picture and then I'll have a narrative. So there are some core pictures that all of my inspection reports include. So what I mean by core pictures of your main water valve, pictures of your gas shutoff valves, pictures of your attic boards, pictures of your roof, pictures of your electric panel with the cover on and with the cover off. I put that level of detail in the reports because a lot of times the clients aren't with me and I never want them to get their report and wonder, did he inspect this? So that's why I always have a picture of it so you can see everything that I inspected and that it was on or operable during the inspection. So for instance, like I just explained to the buyers I just left, their appliances. When I take pictures of the appliances, I'm taking a picture of your refrigerator, then I'm taking the temperature of your refrigerator. I'm taking your range, then I'm taking a picture of the range. Everything in your report will show that everything was working as of the day of the inspection. Let me see. Will I be able to attend the inspection? Yes, I always encourage home buyers to attend the inspection. Now, because of COVID, we do things a little differently. What we do differently, every inspection, we have gloves on, we have masks, we have booties, and then we also do social distancing. So typically how I do the upstairs, if I'm upstairs, most people kind of hang out on the stairs or they hang out in the hallway, but I'm the only person that's in a room at a given time. On the main level where, because it's more square footage as far as the living room, the dining room, and the kitchen, more than welcome to accompany me. Just make sure that we maintain that social distance. And that's to keep, everyone healthy involved. I want to stay healthy and COVID free, and I know my buyers do too. Do you maintain membership in professional home inspectors associations? I do. So I'm in 2 professional home inspector associations. One, I'm in the Maryland Association of Home Inspectors, or MAHI, and then I'm also in the International Association of Certified Home Inspectors, or INTERNACHI. The reason that I'm in those professions is because so in order to maintain my home inspector's license, I have to have, I think it's 30 continuing credits every 2 years. So being a member of INTERNACHI, they always offer free courses. And those courses are super helpful because in this industry, things are constantly changing. So as a code is updated, and something changes, as the home inspector, I need to be aware of that change. So to give you an example, we no longer install 3-prong dryer outlets. So the new thing, or because of the code change, all dryer outlets are required to be on a 4-prong outlet. So if you go to Home Depot or Best Buy and you buy a new dryer, it's going to come with a 4-prong outlet. I'm sorry, a 4-prong adapter. So you then have to have that 4-prong outlet. So if I weren't in these memberships and I was just a freelance and home inspector, if I wasn't aware of that change, I'd be doing my buyer a disservice, because they would then say, okay, it's all set up for a dryer. You go buy a dryer, get it back to your house, and now you can't use it. So that's an example of, where being a member of those different associations provide knowledge that is helpful out in the field. Let me see. Do you participate in continuing education programs to keep you up? And that kind of piggybacks into the previous question, because like I said, we have to maintain, I believe it's 30 credits every 2 years. And I'm able to get that by being a member of those associations. Normally with MAHI, we have a huge inspector conference every January. Now that probably won't happen this upcoming January because of COVID, but normally, we have these different conferences. And, those conferences always bring in, different vendors, and you're able to learn about code changes and, brainstorm with other inspectors. And then you're able to get the continuing education credits that you need in order to stay current. So I believe that's about it. I feel like I'm doing a whole bunch of talking. But
That's what you're supposed to
the last
do.
thing I'll talk about are the tools. And then, what'd you say?
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you're
the
doing
last thing
great.
I'll do is talk about the tools that I use, and then I'll take any questions anyone might have. So one of my inspector mentors told me what separates what I won't say good from bad, what it separates inspectors are 2 things: the knowledge that you have and the tools that you use. So how he put it is, you're only as good as your tools. Now I don't necessarily get that, but I see his point. So tools that I use. So whenever I evaluate the roof, I always use a drone. Drone is the best tool that I use in order to evaluate the roof. The drone that I use goes up about 400 foot. So there's not a drone nowhere in the area that I wouldn't be able, I'm sorry, there's not a roof nowhere in the area that the drone wouldn't give me the visibility that I need in order to evaluate it. A lot of times I can't use it in DC, and that's because a lot of Washington, DC is restricted airspace. So the drone that I use is FAA regulated and approved. So because it's FAA regulated and approved, if I try to use that drone and I'm under restricted airspace, there's nothing that I can do that'll make it fly. And that was one of the stipulations of, having a pilot's license in order to fly the drones, is that you get an FAA regulated drone. So if I'm in DC and I'm trying to use it, if it's restricted airspace, there's nothing I can do that can make it fly. So what I use for scenarios like that, I have what we call a spectroscope, which I tell people is the world's longest selfie stick. It's a 30-foot pole and has a camera that sits on one end, and then it's Wi-Fi enabled and Bluetooth connected to my phone. So I have my phone on the pole, I'm looking in the app, and I'm seeing everything that camera sees. So like I said, this thing is 30 feet up in the air. I'm standing on the ground, and I'm able to see everything that's going on with the roof because of that. So those are the 2 tools that I use to evaluate the roofs. Infrared. So I use an infrared camera to evaluate all properties. The reason I use the infrared camera is because I can't tell you guys the number of plumbing leaks and roof leaks that I've found with the infrared camera that I would not have been able to find without the infrared camera. So I typically leave the water on. As the water is on, I'm walking through the property. I'm looking at the property through the infrared camera, specifically looking for any signs of moisture or any kind of roof leaks.
And I have to say, Earl starts from the top. So he'll go on the top, he'll turn on the water, and then he'll make his way back so he can see if there's any leaks. By the time he get upstairs, he'll find any leaks that are in the house.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we all know that water follows the path of least resistance. What a lot of people don't know is there's no time frame on how long the water will take to get to that path of least resistance. So that's why I always leave the water running, typically the entire inspection, because if this water is running for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I'm going through this property with my infrared camera, I can confidently say when I walk out of those doors, as of today, you don't have any roof leaks, you don't have any plumbing leaks. If I just turn the water on, scanned, and then turn the water back off, that doesn't mean that you necessarily don't have a plumbing problem. I just didn't run the water long enough. So the infrared camera and the drone are two key tools. I use moisture meters as well. I use the best moisture meter on the planet, which is called a Survey Master. The Survey Master it's the best moisture meter because it's not thrown off by false temperature readings. So if you have a cheaper moisture meter and it's cold and the wall's cold and you put that meter on the wall, it'll show that it's wet, which is what we call a false positive. It's really not wet. It's the temperature, not the water. The Survey Master isn't thrown off by temperature. It picks up actual moisture. So we use that for moisture meters. We also use infrared thermometers. So right now we're in the heating mode. So we've just made that transition where we're no longer testing the air conditioner. So we're testing all the registers for heat differential. So we set the thermostat typically to about 80. Then we go around to all the registers, making sure that we have heated air come out. And then we take pictures of those registers with our infrared thermometer, which clearly shows us the temperature that's coming out. What other tools do we use? I'm trying to think the stuff that's in my tool bag. And that, then the standard tape measures, flashlights.
So question about your water meter, because I know you have the two kinds, because last time we did that inspection and he brought like 4 different moisture meters. That was very interesting. So you have the poke one, the one that you poke in the wall, and then you have the one that does that you put against the wall.
Right.
Do you want to explain the difference?
So both of them are called, the brand of both of them are Survey Masters. The difference is the one with the pins is what we call invasive, meaning that it goes into wall. Non-invasive is exactly that, meaning that you put it on the wall, but it has nothing that penetrates the wall. So the different scenarios where I use them, typically if I'm in a basement and it's masonry block or concrete, I'll use the invasive moisture meter that has the pins that go in, because all they have to do is go in maybe about 3/4 of an inch. It doesn't have to go in that much at all in order to pick up the moisture. But I use those for things like concrete and block. I try to avoid using those in drywall because they will leave a slight mark there. So my job as a home inspector is to leave that property in the same condition that I found it in. So with that being said, I try to avoid using that one on the inside because I don't want to leave a hole in the drywall. So if I'm in the property and I see some moisture, that's when I use the non-invasive moisture meter, because I can hold it directly up against the wall and get an accurate moisture reading, and I don't have to worry about damaging the drywall in the process. So that's the difference between those two. And I think that is about it as far as the tools.
So
honestly,
when you go into, I have questions for you, but before I dive into the questions, when you go to a new renovation, what are the things that are red flags to you? Because I mean, when I'm walking through a renovation, if I see certain things that don't look right, to me, that's a red flag that the renovation was not done properly. So if you can explain to some of our members, that would be great, so that they can understand that when you're working with a contractor, certain things it's not going to fly, period.
Right. So, okay, so differences. So if I'm doing a property, and let's say it's a new construction property, I'm evaluating everything that's there. If it's a 1960 property, but it's been renovated, now I'm looking at everything that's there, but I'm paying extra attention to not code violations, but okay. So I know the code, but I'm not a code inspector. I'm a home inspector. So as a home inspector, I think about safety first. Some code violations that can pose safety risk, I'm going to flag 10 out of 10 times. A lot of times with renovations, I pay more attention to code because you don't know who did the work. So I always tell people I can tell when when I'm inspecting a property that's been renovated, I can tell if the contractor was licensed or if the contractor was not licensed by the work. So by the time I'm done with the inspection, I don't need anybody to tell me whether he was licensed or not. I can tell for myself. And it's simple because licensed contractors don't make what we call rookie 101 errors. So for instance, if I'm evaluating the water heater and I get to the water heater and I don't see a shutoff valve and it's a brand new water heater, I know whoever installed that water heater was not a licensed contractor or plumber. No licensed contractor or plumber is going to install a water heater and forget to put a shutoff valve on it if it's a gas water heater. If your washing machine is located upstairs, by code, it's required to have a drain pan beneath it. No licensed contractor is going to miss that. So that's what I mean by you can clearly tell if it was a licensed contractor that did the work versus a non-licensed contractor. So for instance, I'll give you a perfect example. I did a property last week and the electric panel had what we call a double tap. So anytime you have a circuit breaker, you're required to have one wire go to that circuit breaker. So if you have 5 circuit breakers, you should have one wire going to each circuit breaker. So if you have 2 wires going to one circuit breaker, that's what we call a double tap, or 2 wires going to that one circuit breaker. So I took off the cover panel, found the double tap, put it in the report. Contractor calls me and said, yeah, well, I'm the guy that did the work there, and I just want to know what's wrong with this panel that you called out. I said, well, there's a double tap. He said, so am I supposed to separate it? Pause. I knew right then he was not licensed because no licensed tradesman would have asked me, do they need to separate a double tap? So that's what I mean by at the end of the inspection, I can clearly tell who did the work.
Even I know that you cannot have 2 wires going to the same breaker. That's a big no-no. I have some fantastic questions here. Okay. So can a 203K inspector dictate what reno they can do under a 203K construction loan?
Repeat it one more time for me, please.
Can a 203K inspector, and maybe Aaron, you can clarify, can an 203K inspector dictate what reno they can do under a 203K construction loan? So I'm guessing if they're getting the 203K loan, is there a limitation on how much should be under that section of the loan?
That's not dictated by us, the consultant. It's all about how much they qualify or how much they get approved for. Our job is to make sure that what they want to do is within that budget and then give them what we call a work write-up so they can then take that to other contractors to make sure that the contractors give them a valid number. So for instance, if I come out and I do a 203K inspection and, Mr. Smith says, okay, Earl, my repair budget is $50,000. And I say, okay. Based on everything that you want to get done, I have you somewhere around 35, 40,000. So I then give him a work write-up that he shops to different contractors. So he'll then go to that contractor A and say, okay, this is the stuff that I want to get done. So if I already ran the numbers and it came back somewhere between 35 and 40, we all use the same software. So that contractor should come back around the same range. If he goes to that contractor and the contractor comes back and says, oh, well, I can do everything for 80, I'm going to advise him not to use that contractor because those numbers aren't lining up, if that makes sense.
Right. And so you guys know a 2 or 3K loan. So again, when you have a distressed property with the FHA loan, you can do that. So and also if anybody knows about NACA does that too. They will do the draw. So basically the construction loan is a holdback. So you will get your loan and a portion of your loan will be in an account, just like a hard money lender when they do the construction holdback. It's the same principle. But FHA will give you one and you come up with the budget. And if you get approved for the loan, then you just have to pay 30 years on that extra money. So it's your choice. And conventional loans also have that option. So it's not just FHA, it's conventional as well. So I answered this one question, but I'll let you confirm. Your square footage price is based on the taxable living. You don't include the basement, correct? You just get whatever the tax is saying.
Right. So the app that I use is called HomeSnap. So when a person calls me and they say, okay, Earl, this is the address, how much does it cost? Whatever's in HomeSnap, as far as the square footage, I give them the price based on that. Sometimes, like for instance, the property I just left, sometimes I don't really go by the MLS because the MLS sometimes doesn't include the basement. So for instance, the property I just left, she said it was 2,300 or something like that. She said, so how are you coming back at 3,700 square foot? I said, because what you're looking at is only including the main level and the upper level. It's not including the basement. I inspect the basement. What'd you say?
I was wrong because I was saying you didn't include the basement. So I'll just be quiet. I'll let you answer the questions.
No, but it's so funny because I literally had the same conversation with the property I just left, because she said, okay, well, I told them that it would be 600 for the home inspection and radon, and I said, okay. She said, well, I'm looking at your pricing sheet. I said, right. I said, but that's the square footage that you're looking at doesn't include the basement. I said, this is a single family house in Brandywine. There are no 2,300 square foot homes in Brandywine that are single family, because when you include the basement, they're all 3,000 square foot or above. So once I broke down everything to her, then she was perfectly fine. But she was just wondering why I was coming back at one square footage and she had a different one.
Somebody asked if you ever do any sewer lines, sewer scopes.
Sewer scopes, no, but we will moving into 2021. I think I take that class December 15th. So it's a certification course that I'm taking to be certified to do sewer scopes. And then after I pass the test, then I'm going to go out and buy the equipment. So moving into 2021, that'll be a new ancillary service for the company. But right now we're not doing it, but definitely in 2021 we will be.
So I answered that usually the plumber is the one that does that, and not all plumbers do it, because last time we had to look around for have somebody do it for a Baltimore property. And he was a licensed, a journeyman plumber, and he did have the certification. So you'll be the first home inspector I know that's doing the sewer scope. It's usually plumbers and plumbing companies.
Yeah, because
but pack it in, because we're gonna call you for all that.
Look, I try to do as much as I can, simply because people are more attracted to the guy that can do everything versus having to have one guy do this, another guy do that, another guy do that. So if I can do it and do it at a high level, I'm definitely interested in it. I know another inspector in Colorado. He's actually the one that turned me on to it. We were talking and he was like, so how many sewer scopes do you do? I said, I don't do them. You know, if I see signs that it's clogged, I just recommend a plumber. He said, dude, why don't you be the plumber? And I thought about it. And then he started telling me how he did it and the tools that he used. And I was like, bingo, that's what I always try to see what's next for me. And that definitely, and sewer scopes is definitely what's next for my company.
Okay. So another question was, do you record the images of your IR or drone cameras to the documents and attach them to the inspection report?
So all the pictures that I take of the roof are taken with the drone. So when you get your report and you see your roof, you're seeing, what it looks like from the drone. So for instance, with the roofs, I take 7 pictures. So I take left, middle, and right, front. Same thing in the rear. And I take an aerial view. So you'll be able to see from the drone what the left side, the middle, and the right side look. And then you see an aerial picture where you're looking at your front and your rear roof at the same time.
Okay. And for the infrared, do you keep, I know, I could have sworn I remember you taking a picture, but you take a picture on your phone of what the meter shows you. Was that what you were doing last time?
Right. So infrared, I put in every picture in some kind of way. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Infrared, I put in every report in some kind of way. So what I mean by some kind of way, when I'm testing your heating system and I'm looking at your register, I take a picture of that register with the infrared camera so you can see the actual heated air coming out versus putting just the temperature in it. So I typically do infrared for the heating system as well as the ovens, because the ovens, it just shows up so awesome with the infrared camera. And that way people look at it and they see that bright orange color, they know that it's hot, and it removes a lot of the questions or the guesswork too. So yeah, so every report that I do, you'll have drone. Like I said, the only way you won't have drone pictures is if it's restricted airspace. And even then you'll have the pictures with my 30-foot camera pole. So that's in every inspection. And then I always use infrared in every inspection, like I said, in some kind of way. Now, if I find moisture with the infrared, I'll have a picture of the drywall with the naked eye. Then I'll have a picture of the drywall with the infrared camera. Then I'll have another picture showing you just how wet it is with the moisture meter. So like I said, and that's if I find moisture with it. If I don't find moisture with it, when I test your heating system, that picture will be in infrared and will be included in your report.
Perfect. And the next question is, what is your opinion regarding window bars? Keep or remove? For rental properties, do they have to be removed? For my DC house, I had to remove them when I used it as a rental.
So the question was, what's my opinion about them? Okay, so I'm going to tie my opinion to safety, because like I said, as a home inspector, my first thought is always safety. So whenever I see the security bars, I always recommend what we call quick release hardware as an addition to them. Safety bars are awesome because they keep the bad guys out, but they can be a fire hazard because they prevent the good guys from getting out in the event of a fire. So what quick release hardware does, it gives you the best of both worlds, because it gives you the security by preventing people from coming in from the outside, but it gives you the accessibility of getting out in the event of a fire.
So I know that in some places, the new ones have that lock inside. So you have the lock so you can just, in case of emergency, open it and get out. And
Right.
you can put so that one I know of. And I think
exactly. Yep.
it's moving more to that if you have to have a security bar on the window.
Exactly. Yep. You got it.
If you guys don't have any other question, I can show you what the reports look like. I have one from Earl, and I will share my screen. And I'm actually.
I think Otto had a question that he wanted to ask in person.
Yeah, he said, Otto, you have his phone number. Yeah, so Earl, he said it was a little complicated question. He'll give you a call to ask you. That's one thing about Earl. Earl is available all the time, and he's even available for my clients way after he's done the inspection. Sometimes people call him for questions, or one time he was late because like this lady called me, she had water everywhere. I had to stop by and go help her. So he is very, very like helpful. So I really appreciate him for all the stuff that he does. So let me go ahead and share my screen so you guys can see where's that? Share screen. For some reason, my computer does not want to. Hang on a second. This is interesting. Whiteboard.
So Earl, I really liked the last time in Baltimore reading your report, going through it. I love how it's very well structured, like the structure of the report and the picture into it. Everything is very, very clear. So good job on that.
Thank you. I appreciate feedback like that is perfect. Feedback is always good, honestly, one way or another, because if it's negative feedback, you know what to adjust. If it's positive feedback, it just reinforces that you're doing something right. So I definitely thank you for that.
Okay, this is very strange. For some reason, I cannot access my window. So hang on one second. I'm going to try one more time to advanced sharing. Multiple participants. Okay, let me try this again. For some reason, I cannot. So this is what it's letting me share. This is very strange. Let me share. Huh. Okay, I'm very sorry. It's for some reason I am not able to share. Mickey, can you share your screen real quick and tell me if it lets you share your screen?
I hope it lets you do it. I'm curious now. I want to see my report.
You don't look at the reports?
Honestly, no, I really don't. I look at them. Once I put them together and edit them, I hit send and don't think about them. I try to forget them as soon as I can so I don't have them like running together in my brain.
Yeah, so yours is working, but this is strange. I am not able to share my screen. That's never happened to me before. You see, I can't share
Oh, man.
this screen. Kendrick is here. He's supposed to be my IT.
That's perfect. Your IT guy's there.
Hello.
Earl's right there.
Hey, Earl.
What's up, man?
How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing all right. You may have to move that screen over to the left and see if you can do it on the same pane and then try it that way.
Okay, I'm very sorry. This is kind of weird. Nope. See, it's not even giving me
Try that.
nope.
Okay.
Files. No, it's kind of it's very strange.
So
Mickey,
Earl, there's another question here. They're asking, how long does it typically take to receive the report after the inspection?
24 to 48 hours. So
Wow.
best case scenario, 24, worst case, 48.
That's pretty fast.
Yeah, the software that I use gives me the ability to kind of do the report while I'm doing the inspection. So when I'm doing the inspection and taking pictures, I am taking a picture, but that picture is automatically getting loaded into the report. So that's how I'm able to turn them around so quick.
Wow. And I thought that all those time you were setting up all night long to report.
That's how, before I got that software, that's exactly so before I got that software, I used to take all these pictures, come home, move those pictures into the computer, then move them from the computer into the template. So then I was up all night till the wee hours doing reports. But this software that I use now, it saves me so much time because I'm able, like I said, to actually do the home inspection report while I'm doing the inspection.
That's awesome, really.
Look, I'll be honest with you. Best $1,500 I ever spent.
I bet.
Yeah, because of all the time that it saves me. Oh man,
Yes.
best $15 ever.
okay, so I am back, but I had to log out, log back in, so I don't see any of the chat messages. So Mickey's gonna have to do the questions because I made her the host. So as you can see, this is what you get. You get reminders, and I had changed it, I rescheduled, and then he'll just tell you there's a reminder that you have an appointment coming soon. And then the next thing, see, here's the reminder. And then I'm going to show you a report. But actually, my Baltimore report is not there anymore. If you can send it to me again, Earl, I'll appreciate it. But this is what you get. You get an email once the report is completed with a password and everything. And then you click on here, and it takes you to his site. I've saved it because I've come so many times. This is his website. Very nice, very professional. He has all of this information here that you guys can read. He has all this information there. So let me come back here. So I'm going to log in to view my report. And this is one of the houses we did for one of my clients. And he'll tell you if you have an invoice, it'll show it right here. Here's the inspection. I'm not creating a list from the inspection. I'm just going to view the report. And this is the report. So I'm going to try to not scroll too fast. So this was for this property in Montgomery Village. Table of content. You can click here if you want to go through that. So a home inspection report always has a summary. The summary is either at the beginning or the end of the report. It tells you like the major things that are of concern. So you'll see that in his report as well. Usually agents, we go on the summary, and that's what we use to do the inspection notice. So here are the pictures. That's the drone pictures, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Of the roof. right there. You can see all the pictures. The gutters, they always look for downspout extensions or
Yep.
something. He's always going to look here to make sure there's no leaves or gunk inside the gutters and downspouts and so on. And you see he flagged like a loose siding on the side of the house. Vegetation. I know you guys don't like vegetation touching the house. Can you explain why?
Reason we don't like the vegetation touching the house is simply because that vegetation holds moisture. So it's almost the equivalent when it rains to just holding a sponge up against the siding and up against the property. And once that water, it just gives it an opportunity for moisture intrusion. So we always recommend that the vegetation is trimmed at least 12 inches away to avoid any kind of moisture intrusion.
Right. And some of these leaves can go in the gutters, pack
Yep.
up the gutters, freeze, break the gutters. The garage, they always look to make sure that this is high enough and that the laser is going for the anti-reverse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I follow Earl everywhere. All my inspectors, I drag my clients. I was like, let's go. If he's going, you're going.
Yeah.
So we go everywhere. And I asked a ton of questions. See, missing door stops. These things, if he brings me a report like this as an investor, I don't worry about that. I mean, we put them, but this is something you want to leave the inspector to find. You got to leave them something to find. If the house is too perfect, there's a problem. There's no such thing as a perfect house. Then they're going to start finding other issues that you don't want them to find.
I've been doing this for 14 years and I've honestly never not found something. So what I mean by that, for instance, an example, that's a good example, door stomp. Now a door stomp isn't anything that's major, but over time that knob will start going into the drywall, but it's still in the big scheme of things, something that's considered minor. But that's something that, we've all, like, I literally have never not found something.
All right, so here are the windows. He looked at that. Now you're gonna see there was an old crack there, and that was one of the issues we had with this house. And look at the moisture meter. He took a picture of the reading. And then in the attic, they had changed the roof, some of the things. The attic temperature is right there.
Yep.
He's observing all of the lights that's coming into the attic.
So Earl,
Uh-huh.
when we do our rehabs, we started now just waterproofing all of our basement because old constructions, some days it's not that sometimes we will have active water, but sometimes it feels very humid in the basement. And so we started waterproofing the basement.
Yep.
If we don't do that, that moisture will show up, right?
Mm-hmm. So if I walk down into a basement, if I smell that musty, humidity, moisture type smell, the first thing I'm going to do is start scanning with the infrared camera. So let's say I don't find anything with my infrared camera. Then I'll start spot checking with the moisture meter. So if I start spot checking with the moisture meter and I still don't find anything, but I still smell it, I'm going to recommend that they have what we call a dry basement certification, meaning that it gets waterproof simply because that smell is there for a reason. Even though I couldn't find anything during the inspection, the smell is still there. So I'm going to recommend a dry basement cert.
Okay.
We found also that sometimes if you have wood paneling, it's horrible. Wood paneling will suck the water and it will grow mold, even after it's been dried and dehumidified. And we've had this issue in Chevrolet that it looked really bad. We removed the wall panel, there was no water because at some point, I guess the water heater leaked and they never fixed it. And we had water, but it was not even close to where the wood paneling was. So it's like you got to do a little bit more investigation. He checks the temperature at the faucets. Here, all the inspectors should give you the information about the appliances. So especially the water heater, the HVAC, they should be able to tell you the age, model number, or any of that. Do you remember this little thing that they didn't do this properly?
Oh, yeah.
The water heater. Do you want to tell them about the expansion tank?
Yep. So the property doesn't. So whenever I see a water heater and it doesn't have an expansion tank, I always recommend the expansion tank. So now it's a code requirement. If you install a new water heater, then it should have an expansion tank included with it. So what the expansion tank does, in the event that the water heater was to malfunction or stop working, the expansion tank would hold the excess water there versus letting the water drip out of the fittings. So that's the role that the expansion tank play. It pretty much relieves any excess pressure from the water heater.
Right. So this one, they changed the water heater, but they never put a tank. So instead, they did the old valve release on the top, which is not very efficient because if it starts coming out, it's going to put water everywhere. But it's a new water heater and it looked like it was done properly. So, you know, my buyers didn't make too much of a fuss. This was crazy. You see how they cut? So you can't read the water meter. They cut the wall right at the edge. So it's like the silliest thing ever. So, you know, we had to get WSSC to read the meter reading, do the meter reading from outside. I mean, just basic 101. Yeah, that's just, that one was just. So here's the, is that the gas? Yeah, the gas line.
Shut off valve.
Yeah, and then keep going. So they had some little things here that's like older ceilings, seals of stuff. You guys always take out the panel.
Right. Yep. Yeah, we always take the panel, yep, and evaluate the wiring behind it. Absolutely. Now, that's something that we're on, according to our standards of practice, we don't have to do that. I do it because if I don't take that cover off, how can I tell you the condition of the wiring? So that's why I always take a picture with the panel cover on and then a picture with the panel cover off. So that way you'll know that I inspected it.
And that's where you see the double wires coming into one breaker and you know that was not done properly.
Yeah.
And so here's the furnace. It's a gas furnace.
Yep, see, and that's the infrared picture. Remember I told you I put infrared in. This is actually a good test. This way people know I'm not lying. Remember when I said I put infrared in every report in some form? There it is. That's the heat register. And in the upper left-hand corner, you can see that during the time of the inspection, it was coming out at 97.7 degrees. Yeah. So, and then I also scan all the properties with infrared anyway, but that way you know that I definitely did it because I put that infrared picture in the report.
Right. And then the filter is right there. Now they have a fireplace, so you guys also go in and take pictures and make sure the flue and there's no moisture and no leaks and everything.
Yep.
Right. And then here's the compressor outside. Yeah, so all the information is there. 7 to 15 years, 2001. So they're supposed to give you the date of that. Of the unit. And again, he's checking the temperature and he takes pictures. That's the attic insulation. There you go. And appliances again. There's the picture of the oven with the temperature. And the fridge, freezer. Here's the garbage disposal, microwave. I had a home inspector that used to bake cookies.
Yeah.
So by the time you're done, the cookie was done.
Yeah.
That's different. So here's the water, the machines, the dryer vent. And now here's the summary. So as an agent, usually this is what we go for. We look at these items and that's what we bring back to the seller. Say, hey, Mr. Seller, according to the summary report, because that's where the inspector is going to flag the items that are really the biggest concern. So this is where you get flagged. So here are the ones that they flagged. You know, the crack, the light coming in. This was actually, they had fixed it. So we came and they just forgot to wipe it. So there was no more leak, but they fixed it.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah. Yeah,
so that valve thing, the wrong cutout here, and, you know, yeah, the missing, actually, it was missing the CO2 and smoke detector in the basement. because the new code is you have to have CO2 on every level if you have any type of gas or furnace, correct?
Yep, you got it.
I'm learning.
I used to always, she finds stuff on the inspections before I
I
do.
do. I'm always breaking something. So after a while, I'm like, I'm not touching anything.
She's awesome.
It's like,
Like-
I get attracted. I start touching, and I'm like, Earl is like, did you find something else again?
Yeah, I'm telling you, she'll be like, hey, Earl, look at this. And I'm like, God dang it, she found something. Yeah. But that's good, though. I mean, it doesn't bother me in any way because, honestly, that way I know I can't miss it.
Right, right. So that's what the inspection looked like. And so when a buyer comes back to you, I have a house in Clinton. The buyer said every single item on the inspection report. And even the agent called me, she's like, I'm very sorry, but this buyer does not understand. And I've been telling her, she's not listening to me. So we're like, okay, we'll fix these things, but we're not fixing everything. She walked away. She's never gonna find a perfect house, but an agent is supposed to go with their clients and look at this summary. This is what the summary part, I'll come back to it, is really where all of these items of concern should be. You start here. And what we do is when we do our repairs, because we usually accept to do most of them, I'll do a few more. And we do that so that even if they didn't get everything they wanted, they come in and they don't bug us for anything else. And we're good. So we do a little bit of extra. So maybe they'll pick 5 of these and I'll tell Wilson, do all of them so that we're done. So this is kind of like the way we do things. And I recommend you do that. So this is the report from Earl. This is what it looks like. Do you guys have any additional, what is the name? If the A coil for a 2-system compressor is oiled and rusty, any requirement we should bear in mind for a new replacement? Earl.
So with the HVAC systems, I always recommend that they're evaluated by a licensed HVAC technician. So the reason I always recommend it is simply because no matter who the manufacturer is, whether it's Trane, Carrier, Goodman, they recommend annual servicing. So as a home buyer moving into the property, they have no idea of knowing when's the last time this thing was looked at. It could have been looked at in 12 months. It could have been looked at 5 years ago. So I always recommend that the HVAC system is the only time I don't recommend it is if the seller can show AISA or whoever the realtor is service papers showing where it's been looked at in the last 12 months. But any type of improvement or defect that I see, including the A coil, the burner area or the burner assembly, rust, excessive moisture, anything like that, I'm going to recommend that it's evaluated by a licensed HVAC technician. As far as life expectancy, if it's a gas furnace, the typical life expectancy on that is about 15 to 20 years. I think it's 15 to 20 or 20 to 25. I think it's 20 to 25. But that's one reason that I always put the age of the component in the report, because if it's within 5 years of the life expectancy, I'm going to recommend that it pretty much is evaluated or replaced anyway because it's over its life expectancy. Now, with that being said, life expectancy doesn't necessarily mean that you need to run out and buy a replacement. So if I'm evaluating a gas furnace and the life expectancy on a gas furnace is, let's say, 20 to 25 years, if this furnace is 20 years old, but it's working in great condition, I'm looking on the inside of the panel and everything's fine. Give me 1 second. So if I'm evaluating everything on the inside of the panel and all that stuff is in good, if I'm evaluating everything on the inside of the furnace, if all that stuff is in good shape, then I'm going to talk to my client and the realtor and let them know that, this thing is 20 years old. The life expectancy is 25 years old, but it's working very good. Still going to recommend that it's evaluated by an HVAC tech because I don't know when's the last time this thing was looked at. But just because something reaches its life expectancy doesn't necessarily mean it needs to get replaced. But if it's at 25 years, if the HVAC system is 25 years old and the life expectancy is 25 years old, then I'm definitely going to recommend that it's replaced, because it can be too problematic, because it can work perfectly during the inspection, but because it's at the end of its life expectancy, I wouldn't want my home buyer to be in there and 6 months later, the furnace stops working. So
And
because
I
it's
know that you guys also always recommend, if hasn't been serviced recently,
Mhm.
every report I see, it says have an HVAC service the unit or do
Yep.
some type of maintenance. That's every report I see that. So
Mhm.
when my sellers do it, I said, make sure they write on the unit that they've done the service and give us the receipt.
There you go. And I always tell people, make sure you get the invoice, because the invoice is your proof that a licensed HVAC tech looked at it and not Uncle Joe.
Yeah, and Odo had a question for you.
Yeah, Harold, I want to try and make this question because I think there actually may be benefit for the rest of the crowd watching, and I really appreciate your time because this has been very informative. So this is a personal, it's not a business like real estate investor question, but so this house was built in the 70s, bought it in 2015, moved in, and during the home inspection report before we moved in, they had a couple issues, and one of them was the drywall in the ceiling was hanging down about 2 to 3 inches. And we highlighted that, and there was some, they also had stored a bunch of heavier objects up and this is in the garage, by the way, heavier wood objects up in that attic space, even though it's, you shouldn't be doing it for heavy stuff. It should just be light stuff.
Right.
And so we moved it, and they pushed back and said, we're not going to fix that drywall. We didn't fight it. We just said, okay, we, accepted the house, moved in, and it kept bothering me. Keep in mind, so side note, my degree from college was in civil engineering, although I didn't go that route. I went into the Navy, so I never was an engineer, but I still have some of that training.
Gotcha.
I took all the drywall down, and the bottom cord on one of the roof joists had cracked, and it was hanging down about 6 inches. So what I did some research. I went back and jacked it up, sistered the beams together, then actually went and talked to a roof guy and got a structural engineer to sign off on it. But during my research, that was something that, had it been caught, they would have had to have replaced before we moved in the house. If a home inspector misses something like that, is that a liability? And what I learned from that is, if there's something that is really kind of doesn't make sense, and it doesn't seem like it was looked at thoroughly, I would go back and look at it again with much more detail and much more attention. But I guess bottom line, is there a liability for a home inspector in that case, and what would be the best way to approach that?
So, I mean, okay. I'll answer it as best I can. So, as home inspectors, we're required to have general liability insurance. General liability insurance pretty much just covers the home buyer or ourselves in the form of an injury. Certain inspectors, like myself, we carry what we call errors and omissions insurance. So the reason I carry the E&O is simply for situations like that. So if there's something that I missed on an inspection, if someone calls me and they say, Earl, you missed this, if I missed it, then I would just use my errors and omissions insurance in order to get it rectified. It all depends on whether or not that inspector actually had, E&O or not. Like I said, it's one of those things that it's up to the inspector. Like I said, we're required to have general liability insurance. We're not required to have E&O. It all depends on that inspector.
Okay.
So if I can say something too, I have a situation like that, 2 situations like that happened with other inspectors. One missed, there was no vent. The vent for one bedroom was all the way in the back of the closet. And so the room really didn't have a vent. So I called them and he paid somebody to come and fix that out of his own pocket. But the other issue I have, which is currently happening, actually, I want to get your input. Polybutylene pipes, nightmare.
Yep.
So polybutylenes, and I think you can explain better than me, there's those gray looking pipes plastic
Mhm.
pipes.
Brass fittings.
So if you see a gray looking pipe instead of the white or the copper, run. Because they had a lawsuit, they had to stop using them. They started leaking everywhere. They would the joints, it leaked. So the inspector said, oh, there's polybutylene, is bad. But he never put in a report. He put copper and PVC. Now my poor buyer, a year and a half later, has leaks everywhere in the house. So he has to shut down the water and only turn it on when they're taking showers or using the bathroom or getting water. So now he has to do a claim with the insurance and all that stuff. I mean, he's like ready to sue everybody, including me. And I had to remind him that I'm not a home inspector. That's not my job. But just to say, you know, issues like that do happen. So the home inspector is liable because he missed it, and he especially did not put it in the report. So, you know, he does have that E&O, but please explain a little bit more about those type of pipes. And he left.
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Okay. He walked away. Perfect timing. Because we did steal him. He literally walked in the house and he went straight to the computer. So again.
Yeah. I'm sorry. My internet started going crazy. So I'm out there talking to my sons. Are y'all on the internet? So so polybutylene. So like Aisha said, polybutylene are these gray pipes. You can identify them 2 ways. They're gray pipes. They have a brass fitting versus a regular, you know, PVC fitting or CPVC fitting. They're gray pipes. And then they're stamped PB2110. So if you see these gray pipes, and if you look on them and you see a little code and you see PB2110, and if the home was built in the 90s. So if the home was built in the 90s, if you see a gray pipe and it has PB2110 on it, 10 out of 10 times you are looking at a polybutylene pipe. We always flag them in the report because polybutylene pipes have history of failure. What happens over time with the polybutylene, the pipes themselves are fine, the fittings start to fail. When those fittings start to fail and you turn on the water, that's when you see the leaks. So like I said, that if the home is, before I drive to any property, I do what I call homework. So when a client calls me and they give me a property address, the first thing I'm looking at are the utilities, because I want to know if it's a heat pump or is it forced air. Second thing I'm looking at is the year it was built, because certain things are consistent with the building practices of that time. So if I pull up a property and I see that it was built in the 90s, you guys can't see it, but on my end, where in my inspector notes on the calendar, it says possible polybutylene. If the home was built before 1978, on my end, it says possible lead. It's another form of a heads up, so I really know what I'm walking into. But like I said, if you see a gray pipe and you see that PB2110 on it, and if the home was built in the 90s, you're looking at a polybutylene pipe.
So do you guys have any other questions for Earl? I mean, I gave you, and I do want to do a disclaimer. Home inspectors are human beings, just like the rest of us. They will miss stuff. I mean, a house, you can look and look, you know, sometimes they miss it, but being able to talk to them and actually, you know, get the question answered or have them, you know, talk to you is always a plus. So, you know, I definitely can vouch that Earl will call you. He's concerned and he cares. There's one more question. Is it if a unit only has electrical appliances, and a coal fireplace, are you still required to put a CO2 monitor on that floor?
Okay, you said, are you still, the key word is required. So at the end, if everything is electric, you're not really required to do it because it's no combustion. Everything's electric. I would kind of talk to my client about it. I'm not sure if I necessarily would I would probably still put it in the report in case they ever made the transition from electric to gas. But if everything is electric, there's no combustion, there's really no need for a CO monitor.
The coal fireplace. It has a coal fireplace.
Oh, the coal fireplace. Oh, I missed that. Yeah, now because of the fireplace, yes. I missed the fireplace the first time. If it's a fireplace and it's electric, yes, I'm going to recommend a CO monitor.
Okay. And we always recommend, and I always tell my clients, if you have a fireplace when you buy the house, even a rental, clean it up, because you don't know what people did before. You don't know what type of soot is in there. You don't want it, if you use a fireplace, clean it once a year. You have to get
And,
this stuff out of
I
there.
put that in my report too. Absolutely. For that very reason, because you don't know, again, that's another thing that should be annually cleaned. Your fireplace, your chimney throat. Unfortunately, no one ever does it. So as a home buyer walking in, that's why I always recommend it. So that way you can know, okay, I bought my home in 2020. I had my fireplace, my HVAC, and my chimney done in 2020. So that way going forward, you can kind of, keep a record of it for yourself.
Right. Absolutely. And now Baltimore last time was requiring that they did the metal liner in the chimney.
Oh, are they? Good. Good. I didn't know that.
Yeah, the inspector said it was a new code in Baltimore, so it was not just a fireplace. We had to go in and get somebody to put that metal lining in the fireplace as well, so that it preserves aids with the life of the fireplace as well.
Oh, that's good. That's even better.
They're changing those codes all the time.
Yeah, because I always tell people that, so you have requirements and then you have recommendations.
Yes.
So I always tell people requirements are anything that's a code violation. So if it's a code violation, it's considered a requirement because they have to follow the National Building Code, so they have to bring it up to speed. If it's not a code violation, then it's considered a recommendation, and that's where the realtor comes in to negotiate that.
Yes, and then we're not miracle workers too. Do you guys have any more questions for Earl? Usually we dismiss at 8, but we had so many questions and it was so informative that we still have you up here talking to us. If you guys have questions, now is the time before we let him go, because he just got home when he jumped on the call.
All my gear is still in the car. I literally pulled up, looked at my watch, ran in the house,
I called him and I hear like beep, beep, beep from the car. I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah, I'm because everything, this property I just left, everything just got thrown off. The realtor had an issue and I'm sitting, so everything just got kind of thrown off. So when I get off of this call, I have to go back to my car because I carry about $5,000 worth of equipment on my inspections. I don't want to leave that in the car. So that being said, as soon as we get off the phone, I'm going straight to the car.
So if you
Thank you for coming out with us.
Good time. I'm giving you 3 more seconds, and after that, we're going to release him.
Okay.
And I have put the information here. I will send it again. It was in the email as well. You have his website. He was included in the monthly meeting, but the email out. But I will send it again so you guys have his name, his phone number, and his email. All righty.
All right. Thank you, Earl.
So thank you so much, Earl.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Like I said, I apologize for being late. I had every intention to be logged on by 6:30, but you guys have my information. So any questions, please feel free to email me, text me, or reach out in any way you can.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you.
All right, you guys have a great rest of your evening.
Yes, thanks everybody for joining.
All right,
I'm going to
the car to get my gear.
And don't forget to see Erin's meeting next week. She'll send out the information soon. Take care. Bye.